and the way the people's shapes were captured.
Nice! And I'm a great believer in brevity, plus there wasn't much time to write anything. 10 seconds. Anyhow, this is of the Cornet, and it's called Harp. The lines that bind, like the bars on a composition, played by an angel.
Go back. What Judy was talking about. Have your imagination go on a journey when you look at something, when you see something. And I wanted to go back to before the sands came in. I know it's a little weird. It's called Wind and Sand. Quick, get the goats. You take the baby inside, yelled Therese above the howling wind. That was the last time she saw him. Emile huddled the baby against her thin body and ran into the shelter, fighting against the wind and the driving sand. In the corner of the shelter, she found a piece of torn cardboard and put the baby down, covering its mouth and eyes from the menacing sun. Emile wrapped up the baby with a blanket and settled her on the blowing sand. She was scared and frightened of the wind and sand that wanted to hurt her and the baby. It roared around her as if it was another enemy in Emile's difficult life. The wind seemed like an enemy the wind seemed like an enemy, a force of undeniable strength. She pulled the blanket tightly against her, protecting the baby. She could hear the sand and wind arguing. It sounded like they were insulting each other, like camel traders in her village who would spit and hiss at each other. The whirling wind was peppered with tiny stones that hit her face and body. Sounds of the wind rose like the anguishing screams of patients from her village hospital that had burnt down some days before. She just wanted it to stop. Stop now. She prayed it would stop. Everything would be the same as it was before the storm. The wind blew without a conscience. It galloped through the night with no thought of the destruction it left in its wake. Emile's violated body ached from the sand's assault during the night. Every part of her body was victim to the sand and its constant pounding. Her mouth and lips were parched and cracked and covered with sand. The grit was in her mouth. She moved slightly, making sure not to upset the baby, who still nestled on her chest. Emile stumbled out of the makeshift bed, finding Therese's water bag. She took a long drink and washed the sand from the corners of her mouth, eyes and mouth. She took the bag over to the baby and washed the sand from the baby's face. She scraped the sand from the corner of the baby's eyes and nose and mouth. Emile saw a bright light coming through the wooden gated door. With the new morning light, she looked around at the shelter where she spent the night. There were 4 walls of crumbling stone covered with flaky white paint and goat dung in the corner. Nothing in this shelter would remind you that humans once lived there. Even the whispers of the dead were gone. Emile was lost. The only thing that would keep her sane was the baby, who wasn't even hers. The end.
Hello, Judy. You're Judy?
I'm Judy.
Oh, thank you very much for your work. I've got a few poems here. I've got 5 poems. Four of them are inspired by the work here, and one of them I just threw in. I think it might fit. So the first one is called Iron and Sand, and it comes from this group here. Iron and Sand. Lines for us, lines for the desert sand. Iron laid, particles blown, a sweep, a geometry. But the earth cannot neglect itself. The earth does not wait for something in the distance, the squeal of wheels, faint, louder, then faint again, a dream of connection, I touch, confluence, you and I merge, confederation. We defend. What is patience for? What our forbearance? As though destiny, our destination, exists finite, to be fulfilled, reached, not just be itself, not just be that windswept thing we never can imagine. This one's called Vertigo, and it comes from the pictures, I guess this is in the gallery in Whistler? What's it called? The Odane Gallery? Is that right? The Odane Gallery? Okay. Yeah. Vertigo. Vertigo. Whether at the Odane Gallery in Whistler or the Mission at San Juan Bautista, California, a camera in a stairwell makes me think of Hitchcock. Jimmy Stewart's fateful bell tower, imaginary and superimposed though it is, how he climbs the steps, Kim Novak and ultimate release just beyond his sweat, how he turns to look back and below, again and again he must, yes he must for sanity's sake, and the sharp-angled spiraling abyss of a staircase rushes forward, dolly zooms in place. Yet each tentative pause, attempt at control, is what thwarts after all. Whatever the plot, someone will fail, someone will fall, Scotty, Madeline, you, or someone just like you, the one I've always been looking for. Not necessarily, but I did notice that there was the only people, I think, are here. There's tiny little figures there. Anyway, so that was what I was thinking. This is called Sometimes in Art. Sometimes in art, the human is merely implied. The bridge arching from below, suspension cables, building cranes above, the insistence of design, dominance of line, color, artifice, so that even a frond unfurling, waves of sand flooding an absentee's living room achieve abstraction that only we are capable of. Sometimes in art, the human recedes to a vanishing point, the top of a distant dune, abandons yesterday's dream. It lets us know how alone we can be, how alone we make ourselves, and that someone is there to remind us. Suspension. On the bridge, he sang. On the bridge alone. Sang naturally. Again on the bridge. Sang alone, naturally. Again he sang alone, naturally on the bridge. On the bridge he sang alone, again naturally. Then he took himself to the highest point of the bridge, above the rushing narrows, and sang, alone again, naturally. Made up word, it's the name of a town that I made up called LaSalle, and it's inspired by these two painters here. Inspired by, it's not about them exactly. LaSalle. The town is called LaSalle. People there know the value of things, according to the notion of potential. Potential being the imprimatur of another, an arrival from tomorrow. If applied to the structures in which the people of LaSalle dwell, their living spaces, potential is in the absence of real color. The negative hues they favor, the grays and eggshell whites, brownstone beiges, bare pastels, a tabula rasa of white space for another to paint identity, stamp, shape, molded, be bold with colors. The ones they've seen on gallery walls, in pages of National Geographic, brochures for Newfoundland, Labrador. And to visit LaSalle, explore the avenues, friendly neighborhoods, the open houses, is to know the extent of their appreciation. The surface of each abode, inside and out, primed to fulfill the dream of another. Some unhooked and torn, bold one, vaguely scorned, but out there, wandering and waiting, to bring the out there colors of the world to the precious and perpetual future of LaSalle.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's so great to be here. I'll say a few things. I'm going to put this here as sort of a prop. If you want to buy one of these, you can buy one of these. They're pretty cool. I think they're pretty cool. I was just thinking about it. It's about 13 years ago. Me being a poet started with a group that was called Kit's Writers with Bonnie and Sita. Wow, it's kind of emotional. I didn't expect that. And it's it's been a long time. And so that's where I started writing poetry. I was a musician, and I didn't really think I was a writer, and sort of figured it out there. And my first chapbook was called, it came mostly from that stuff, and it was called Poems of Reconstruction. It was a big time of change. And here we are a decade later-ish, and it's a big time of change again for me. And this is Tales of Transformation. This is my new chapbook. So to me, this exhibit was about change somehow, right? Especially the leading questions in it, which fits in a lot to what I am going through with changing identity and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to read one poem that comes from this book that was not from here, and then I'm going to do two poems that came from this exhibit. So this one was also inspired. That's one of the reasons I'm reading this one. Is it's about change, but it's also inspired by something else. It was from a writing prompt. This was I do a show called Match Poetics, where we take an iconic record and I put a band together that performs the whole record. We've done 34 of them now. Oh, actually, next Wednesday will be the 34th of these shows. And then we get a poet to write a poem for each one of those songs. So the show is we perform the song and then the poem. And last summer we did Death Cab for Cutie's record Transatlanticism, and I was in the band, but I also wrote poems to most of the songs. So this comes from there. This is from The New Year by Death Cab for Cutie. It's called Firecrackers in the Hallway. Ben Gibbard sings, "Everybody put your best suit or dress on." Seems a simple idea, yet is complicated for many. For me, it's situational, whether I wear a suit or a dress. I wore a woman's suit to my last high school band concert, and no one said anything, which was both disappointing and amazing. I'm lighting firecrackers off in the hallway, but if no one notices them, do they exist? That's how it felt at the concert. Me lighting firecrackers off in the hallway while 30 dialogues bleed into one. I'm searching for a dialogue that is authentic, but questions are relentless. The world is not flat or simple like the old days. There are so many grays, maps folding into origami. The new shapes bring me closer, but not clearer. Airplanes and speed trains and freeways are still ever present, but distances still hold me back. One of these days, I'll put my best dress on every time. 30 dialogues will become one, and I'll be wealthy with confidence and self-acceptance. This will be my new year. I can pay for them, and that's awesome. So that's cool. So these two poems here were inspired by this gallery. These are the ones from this reading. They don't have titles, but here they are. The pictures seem to show humanity pushing back against what is natural. Some would say I am doing the same thing. I see the reverse. As the sand slowly entered the buildings of Namibia, so too my true nature sifts into this building, my body, the one built by heteropatriarchy. I actually left that building, this body, many years ago. But the sands of self, the pebbles ground down from the mountain of internalized depression, are slow to refurnish the building. Sometimes the winds of cisnormativity swirl, attempting to seal up the doors and windows. Sometimes I'm too weak to push back against these winds. Sometimes the winds howl so loud the sands start to retreat. Sometimes I wonder why I don't just curl up inside that old building, light a fire, and let the wind seal me inside what is normal, privileged, and safe. But sometimes I have the strength to be me. I open the doors and venture out no matter what the weather, knowing I need to brave the elements and connect with my true nature. This city is not the same one I moved to all those years ago. Construction cranes dominate the landscape now as the push for density descends. It always surprises me how quickly I forget what used to be in the spaces I pass every day, as businesses along Main Street morph into a jumble of gentrification. I remember Main Street of long ago as such an undesirable place to live, much like my body is often an undesirable place to live. I am now a landscape full of construction cranes as my identity begins to rearrange. Things always get uglier before construction is complete. Moving through spaces is awkward and slower before it becomes smoother and more efficient. Just as Vancouver struggles to balance density with livability, I am juggling masculinity and femininity with livability. They say you can tell how tall the building will be by the height of the crane. Maybe my transformation will be defined by my new name. I've tried on so many in my mind and in my journals, but it always seems to come back to TJS. These are my cranes, and the name, whatever it may become, will be defined by these three letters. In junior high school, I spent much time trying to figure out a cool way to write my initials, and also listening to heavy metal. Not surprisingly, the way I write my initials still looks kind of like the Van Halen logo. As my identity grows up to meet the size of these three letters, a new name starts to take shape. And I wonder what has changed more, the city around me or the one inside of me.
Sometimes we're not. Yes. Thank you very much, Judy, for this beautiful work. And I just have three poems. And it's interesting that a lot of because I'm nearer the end, a lot of the things that have, little threads that have gone through all the readings, there have been a lot of questions because you have your artist statement over there that has questions in it. And there's a lot of people that have written to this picture, which I have as well, and to the picture with the trees. Yeah, it's when we do Dead Poets, we have live poets reading the works of dead poets, and they decide, and we put them in groups, and we don't know. We don't orchestrate that, but there's always a few thematic threads or stylistic threads that kind of emerge, and it's really interesting to see. So, the first poem is, I'm trying to remember what, oh yes, this is the one. This is the one about this, the room filled with sand. Abandonment. When the horizon bounces back and fills the room. When the walls you've built to keep back time don't stand. When every line that points to that distant merge is clean smudged out. When dust, meant for the future, floods this moment. When you dare not cross the room, what if it eats you? When thin light scrabbles, ragged, through the window. When the only way out will render you a worm. When the sky shrinks to a square, small as a face. The questions poem, which was inspired by one of Judy's questions, and you'll hear it in there, and it really has little references to a number of the pictures. questions we ask of all our architecture. What are you doing behind me and above me? Where do all these shadows start? Will that curved iron handle receive my fingers? Where all your cables gather, is that your heart? When my body stands, arms out, are we the same? When mist obscures your bones, are you still there? Who or what exists beyond this frame? Who sits at the apex of this pyramid of air? Thorn trees, the picture of the camel thorn trees, and I thought it was amazing. If you haven't read it, the trees are 700 years old and have not decomposed because they are so dry. And of course been baked black by hundreds of years of sun, which I thought was amazing. Camel thorn trees, Namibia. For 700 years, you've been a comfort. The earth can't scrape away your black skeletons. Our human gazes rest on them, their unmoving verticality amid the shifting horizontals. In your desiccated hearts, you keep black memory fruits, don't you, camel thorn trees? Growing inside you, growing down, blossoming in the lack of light, your rooted, flowering darkness. Under you, you keep a web of old songs, long dead birds, night voices risen from feet ages ago walked to dust. Under you, all these are matted in a cool darkness, your rootworks weaving them together, below the clay, into a shivering pavement that anchors you. You are watchers. You are keepers. You wait with us for the end of all things. You wait with us in this oven of blue emptiness. Thank you.
Judy, I love your line photographs. When you walk in the room, it's very powerful. And I have to say, this one is my favorite because of those lines. They're moving. That's what they are. Very nice work. So I've written a line title for each of mine. The first one is, I thought those trees were silhouettes. So then when I read it today, I realized that they're not. But I thought a raven came by my window today in my cherry tree that's needing sun. And then I thought, no, it's always just a big black crow or something. It's never really a raven. But it helped me finish my, I wanted to do a silhouette poem, so I put a raven in it. Because if you see the silhouette of a raven, you can tell whether it's a crow, because its back feathers look like an anvil, whereas the crows are more like a fan. That's one of the tips. The other thing is between a crow caws and a raven croaks. So we cleared that up. Hey raven, the earth needs saving. You see the spoils from on high. Stick picker, magic tricker, call the warnings as you fly. Word bringer, croaking singer, black screecher, wily creature, teach the ways of Haida Gwaii. Waterline, this is an experience I had traveling on a small boat from Greece to Turkey. We were stalled in the harbor because there was a fee to be paid, and well, the captains worked it out with a bribe. Harvard police boarding our small boat when we put into Marmaris Bay. Passports, 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 Canada, Francais. After captain to captain talk and a small bribe, we were on our way. Passage fee, Passage feet, grease to turkey, 2 cartons of Marlboro cigarettes, a 26er of Jack Daniels, and a large jar of instant Nescafe. This is maybe love lines or maybe the end of a relationship. A borderline, we'll call it. Come out, please come out. Don't make me shout. We've got so much to talk about. I hate it when you go and hide. Building a wall, that great divide. You in there and me outside. Your very own borderline. You in your space, me in mine. You cross me, then cross me out. Intersecting lines, even parallel, make a gate that keep you in and make me wait. And obviously, broken lines. The night celebrated, passing beer in the slush at the lake edge, peeing in snowbanks, shooting profanities like pucks across the ice. Bing bang, I saw the whole gang blasting from 45s on the cabin hi-fi. The dog skidded into the hole where the water surfaced. The boy made for the animal, fell with him into icy splinters. His brother, skating too fast to scream, saw him go under, had him once by the hood of his jacket, had his arm, then only the dog. On the highway, red flashing distant, mourners numb as their fingers unlacing their skates, moving beside the boy in the blanket, whimpering like the dog, leaving the lake in the moonlight, a broken black disc.
I'm going to ask you to just hold on to any noise you want to make. I mean, you can ooh and ah, but if you can hold on with the applause until the end, I would really appreciate it. It's easier for me. And easier for you, because now you know, right? Right, okay. My name is Amanda Wardrop. I am a mom, as you can see. I am a teacher. I am a writer. I'm a reader. I had the honor of being asked to be the feature poet for this evening, and so I have a lot of pieces of paper that I'm going to go through. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready. All right, here we go. Were I living in a graphic novel, the frames would be well ordered, making sense of the story as it unfolds, drawing lines, telling me what to notice, what is important, zooming in on the beats that might otherwise be overlooked. Were I living a graphic novel, I would know who are the heroines, the demons, and the beasts by the contrasts and the colors. I would turn the pages confidently, knowing that someone had crafted my life for me, had plotted out the rhythms, had created just enough strife to keep it interesting. But this is no graphic novel, and often I miss the moments that are meaningful, searching the whole for sense, trying to hold on to all the elements, all the characters, all the glimpses of knowing that I might have. Bundled, wrapping myself in the scarf, leaving the warmth of my home for the cool breathlessness of outside, then finding that I can let go, unravel myself, pull out of the cloth cocoon that I'd woven to shut out winter's touch. I find freedom from winter, from cold, flying on a wing and a prayer with wind dancing the ends, creating ripples, dragging cold fingers over careful weave. The mess. Beauty lies in the lines created by the interlocking, the buildup of intersections, the presence of many, the insistence of the mess. Sand 1. Sand has a way of wearing things down, peeling skin, polishing rough surfaces, these places filling up like strange hourglasses, keeping track of uncertain times, of leaving, of absence. Each grain taking space, once filled with laughter and warmth and remembering. As the sand scrubs away the layers of presence, it leaves only traces of what was and tells nothing of what will be. Abandoned. My heart breaks as I see bare walls, window open, sand sliding into homes, into spaces available for unknown reasons. And maybe they are happy. Maybe they are better, safer now. Maybe there is plenty and wonder. But carcasses that were homes, bleached bones that were hearths and comfort, call into deep recesses and fears of abandon and loss. Outside the frame. What lies outside the frame? The mess, the disorder, the not right for the moment choices, the why didn't I when I had the chance, the jostling for attention, and the singing to sleep. What lies outside the frame is the stuff of the day-to-day, the petty challenges, the ridiculous hurt, the laughter unbridled, the dropping glasses, and the missed opportunities. What lies outside the frame is the structured moments that allow for the improv, for the highlight, for the just right thing at the just right moment. What lies outside the frame will not be tamed, compartmentalized, ordered, and presented as palatable, as perfectly plated for my consumption. Sand 2 of 4. Just so you know. Like grains of sand working themselves into my skin, hard and insistent, rubbing away the calluses, leaving new skin exposed, the world has a way of demanding certain vulnerabilities. Often in the moments I feel I can least afford them. The grains cling to my skin, unnoticeable and then unbearable. Each step, each movement grinding them further into my soft barriers. Monotony. The white and black and gray lines pushing themselves into my consciousness impose their order on my vision of the places I inhabit. They are cold and I am warm. The monochrome structures tie me to other moments, other thoughts, other ways. They are a cold gray cage, unfeeling and uncaring, and I rattle around inside, small and strong, insistent as my heart. Tethered. The anchor, the tether is outside the frame. Only the wind-stretched cloth invites my gaze. I see how it is moved, how it is played by the wind. The tension between dancing, really dancing, and holding on. The wind whipping, cajoling, pulling it into its arms, playing against its need to be attached to something, to anything. Yeah. Lines. I might have a propensity to hop from line to line. Pick them up, jump rope, and put them down however I please. I might not be willing to color only between the lines. I might love the lines when they are straight and rejoice in them when they connect, collide, and coincide. The lines of my life are meandering things that crisscross, that pick themselves up and dance each other around. The lines, like the thoughts that play, like the things I do, like the loves I have, run amok and will not be reined in. Sand 3. Locked in time and fluid within it. The grains of sand pile up, then throw themselves to the wind, to recombine, to reassemble, to recreate, finding themselves in and out and under, bearing the traces of moments past and lying down tracks for what might come. The waves of sand threaten to swallow, to invade, to degrade, exposing fragile and ferocious beauty. Purpose. I have left homes to be eaten by progress. They have been ripped apart, gutted by metal fingers, love notes written in doorways, devoured by development. And I felt the loss of those repositories of memory. The places no longer exist as they once did. They are alive only in the pathways and connections they created. Moments left fingerprints that couldn't be washed off windows. Little pieces of precious purple glass picked off the walls. Bombs that left traces like well-worn carpet tracks throughout those houses. Years of love and laughter, conflict, and the small chaos of family were the calcium of the house's skeleton, strengthening the bones, creating layers to be revealed slowly. Sand 4. Some days I can imagine curling up and letting go, allowing the sand to pile up on me and wrap me in its fingers. Let the grains swirl and settle until I am covered, not in a fine dust, but buried. allowing them into crevices because I can no longer shake and shimmy off the grains. I am a rainforest girl, and the sands of deserts scare me. The constantly shifting dunes played out in a time frame that makes no sense compared to the rhythms of forests are hard for me to love. I am distant and unwilling, like water in the dry expanse. Story hungry. Yearning for narrative, desperate for the sweet rush of story, of event after event, of being wrapped in words and devoured by hungry images, I search the volumes of my home. I itch for that piece that will lend me a world I want to explore. I run my fingers over the spines as my mind rushes to remember the homes it has loved before and the ones it knows exist without having had a proper introduction. I pull book after book off the shelves, undoing piles, filtering rolls, lifting story bricks to recombine narrative walls that create my space. I am pulled into jackets and prefaces, into lives I have not lived, into places I'd rather not venture. Finally, I land on story-heavy pages and gorge until I can hold no more, and so push back, away from the world, into my own, dizzy, odd, strange, and free. No engineer. I'm no engineer. I have no eye for structure, and I can calculate the tilt of my head so it rests just so on your chest, where I can feel the warmth of your heart. I do not count angles, and I can see the slope, understand the movements of tears down your face, and create the necessary infrastructure to keep you going, not collapse into the river. I'm not a dreamer of spaces. I cannot see what might be, and I know what lies untapped, what lies dormant and powerful, and I can call it out, make it play. I can't build a bridge to span water or rushing cars, but I can create safe passage over gaps that open, shake, and gasp. Universals. I am comfortable knowing that these things have always existed, that love and loss, joy and sorrow, confusion and uncertainty do not belong to me alone. I am at ease, happy to release some of the worry into the world and let the universals eat them as they always have. I am not one to carry these things longer than I must. Dark stories. I want to guide you into uncertain stories, where good is good and not so good, where unease and discomfort are close friends. I want to make you ask for comfort and know none will be given. I want to tempt you into believing that there is an answer, only to be sure that no answer will be forthcoming. I want to rile you up and leave you hanging. I want to tie you to the story and then set it free to wander. I want to unleash the dark and blow out the candles. I've had lots of other people's words in my head recently, and so some of them are in these poems too. My kids will know which one that I'm talking about right now. The fire in my soul is hungry for fuel. Sometimes I can rock it to sleep, have it forget its hunger, but most often it requires a sacrifice. Some small, insignificant part of my life, a moment's sleep, a heartbeat, some timid thought. The fire beast sometimes requires something more significant, a routine, days of work, nights dancing, favorite strategies. And so I am left needing change, finding new tactics and pushing into my darknesses to find sustenance for the fire to sustain the flame. We're getting there. Edges. What lies at the edges? In those not quite anywhere spaces where things exist and are not present, where creatures lurk and dances are silent and slow, where my mind escapes to when it leaves my heart. Those not quite here, not quite there places where dreams are sleeves full of aces and imagined is lived. I might spend too much time wondering what is outside the frame, wondering what else there is, not enjoying the content of the moment enough, and yet I lean in, I find my way in, I work my way in, and I want to know what else, what other moments, what other places of contact, what other questions exist if I were to pull back and enlarge the frame. Hold on. I might hold on to the edges of control, never sure when my grip will release, and I will free fall to crumple land on the next precipice. Some days I get to dance those lines, I get to spin and laugh and pretend it is fun to balance so precariously. And other days I hold my breath, try not to move, and pretend that I can hold on forever. Spiral. If I could rely on the sequence of my life playing out in an ever-expanding spiral, then I could let go and know that the lines I drew made sense. But the spirals that live in my heart and in my skin are not so even, not so trustworthy, not so precise. They spin and weave, they cross and intersect with a fierce chaos, keeping me unbalanced, vulnerable, and present. Right. I am not good at letting things rot on purpose, letting them go gently into that good night. I am almost never resigned. And watching the images, I am transfixed and recognize the beauty of this decay, the slow stripping away of layers, the evidence of time's insistence, the power of things in flux. It is a soft letting go of long-held breath, the relaxing of what has kept me whole, allowing for a dissolution of this particular being, accepting the gifts and the space for otherness and decay. I am able to find patterns and strength in quiet reveals of what has long been hidden. They hold simultaneously what is and what is not. The uncertainties, the heart's desires, and the secrets of passions unarticulated. So I am reminded of the simple grace of letting go and inviting in. Ghost towns. There are ghost towns of my life, places both sacred and silly that I built, lived in, loved in, laughed in, and have left. To decay, to rot, to erode, to fill with sand and memories. In some moments I walk through them, touch the walls, say goodbye again and again, hear the words echoing through the walls and through myself. These places, once colorful and alive, when my thoughts and feelings ran like children, are full of longing, like parents whose arms are long empty of their children's embraces. In some moments I walk through them, touch the walls, am happy to visit and happy to leave again. I can't help but feel the loss and call of these places, and I know that I can no longer reside in them, that I no longer fit inside, that I have become too much and too little, that the boards won't hold.